Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are new, I'm wyonarose and I react. And if you guys are new to my channel, I usually do reactions to music, but Kendall Jenner dropped a whole series on just various people, doctors and people with experience with working with anxious people. So this series is called Open-Minded. So Kendall has teamed up with Vogue and they're doing a series on being open-minded about mental disorders and mental conditions that, you know, are literally not easy to talk about, and not a lot of people like talking about it, especially people going through it. So we're gonna listen to Kenny, and hopefully this helps you guys. It definitely will help me, because yeah, I definitely make it a point to be as open as vocal as I can be about my anxiety and what triggers my anxiety. So this will definitely be helpful for me as well. Getting into, you know, just the different perceptions of how each person understands and interprets anxiety for themselves, and definitely how you know, medical practitioners, you know, have a hand in that. And then also with a little bit of biblical background that I have, I might probably fuse that in as well. So if you guys are ready, we'll get right into this series. I have no idea how long the series is, but we'll definitely be here every Friday reacting to an episode. So yay, let's get into it. I'm excited. Kenny. Aww. I've definitely been keeping up with the Kardashians.
Of my anxieties. I don't like the pity party. I don't like talking about when I don't feel too well. I don't know, I am a little nervous. Just being kind of open about what I struggle with. True. And making it.
I think that's basically not everyone, but I can definitely vouch for I can definitely vouch for having that same sort of feel you know, around it, with regards to when you are triggered, how you are triggered, and just the essential feeling. It's so crazy, because you know, your anxiety is almost based off of this make-believe realm that is just so real within your head that it literally attacks your internal organs, and then it creates this kind of reality. So now you are living in the hormonal imbalances of what you are experiencing within your mind and your heart, and within the actual irregular rhythm of your heart as well. So it's a lot of factors that come into play once, you know, an anxiety attack just hits you. And, you know, being open and speaking about it as often as it happens, because literally anything throughout the day can be of a trigger towards you, and that's not always, you know, it's not always fun to talk about, especially when people have this sort of especially when you go through it a lot, and then people have this sort of oh, you'll be fine, you know, especially when they have that sort of, when you already know the expected response, that's when you are, you know, less likely to you know, be open in actually speaking about, you know, what triggers you.
About what I struggle with, and making it known to other people is a bit nerve-wracking.
So this series is called Open-Minded, and it's basically understanding anxiety. And Kendall Jenner is teaming up with Vogue, so we're reacting to the series. So it says, anxiety disorders are the most common mental health concern in the USA, experienced by over 40 million adults nationwide. I'm already getting anxiety on it. It's can you see my hands? I'm starting to shiver. Oh, all right. I have water. I have water. This is 11 minutes, guys. Get a snack. Come on back. Further on, it says anxiety disorders including generalized anxiety, social anxiety, panic disorders, and phobias, can be experienced at varying levels of severity. It says ranging from a low level to a chronically debilitating. We are, I think this is going to be helpful for me because I've a background on, what triggers anxiety is more the anticipation and the expectation of something. And then it later on festers into greater things that you never even saw coming. As a child, I was bullied a lot, and even now in my grown phases, I would have these flashbacks of people being mean to me and hitting me and shoving my face in the dirt, and you literally, there's nothing, no cause, no nothing for it. So at a very young age, your anxiousness starts building up, because usually when I got bullied, there was no warning. It was out of the blue. It was in an instant. It was suddenly someone would walk up to me and be like, yo, so I heard da 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 and da 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 da, and then boom, I would get hit out of nowhere. So those expectations building up, and later also experiencing like trauma that I'll get into on Life in the System, so you guys can check that out. That is my second channel, also link in the description. And this is actually the channel where we're going to be doing all of this, but since I'm reacting, I think I'll just have it on my reaction channel. But yeah, so it literally goes from each of these stages to where, because I've experienced bullying throughout my life, even cyberbullying. Literally when I was 25 years old, I experienced cyberbullying out of nowhere. So all of these things, like, it builds up, and even you can be the strongest person, you're always gonna have that question like, but what is your problem with me? And not even that your concern needs to be with anyone that has a problem with you. It's just the mental space that you like tap into when you go there. Just like suddenly you think about that, and then maybe you can just go on a whole tangent of thought processes around it, and then get anxiety based off of that. So every time I've experienced someone, just being mean or bullying or whatever the case may be, I would suddenly get a anxious attack, panic attack right on the spot. And even now, it has festered to, the type of relationships that you have throughout your life, the type, how it ends, it can create some sort of social anxiety. So now you're more, like with me, I've had a lot of bad experiences with friends. So now even I'm literally the most, I'm very verbal, very interactive, I adapt very well, but in trusting people, it's just like this for me. So I get social anxiety at times. Panic disorders, definitely. Phobias, definitely. The other night about 2 weeks ago, I had an experience waking up literally with fire in front of me. One of the candles, mosquitoes, man, and I was trying to kill the mosquitoes, but then karma came back at me with just almost burning me alive. And that sort of left some PTSD. So having that kind of panic, and still having panic even with generalized thoughts that isn't even in existence, but it exists in my head, like it's so real in my head that you almost trap yourself. So it's literally you against you. Man. So it says all anxiety disorders bear one thing in common. It's persistent. It's excessive. There's an excessive fear or worry in situations that are not necessarily threatening. Literally. It's almost like a make-believe realm that you enter, but it is so vivid that you nearly panic to death, and it's like you don't want to be in there. You're trying to, but because emotions are so potent and overwhelming, you just get trapped in that. And religiously, well, not religiously, but spiritually, we are made known to not focus on feelings, but rather truth. And having said that, sometimes your feelings are it's so all over the place that you can't even focus on the truth. And that is where, our journey continues as, spiritual believers and Christian believers into the truth, or at least my journey as to where I need to recenter and refocus myself on the truth rather than the lie that is created, but it feels so real because I'm listening to the emotional state of it. It says further, anxiety disorders are generally treated with psychotherapy, medication, or both. There are many ways to treat anxiety, and people should work with healthcare professionals to choose the treatment that is best for them. Before my anxiety got so full blown, or before I actually not full blown, but before my anxiety was actually even apparent to me, because sometimes you would get yourself all these coping mechanisms that you don't even know that you are busy, suppressing feelings. So I had a lot of coping mechanisms that I was on, so I couldn't really focus on me having anxiety that much. But back in 2017, I got diagnosed with depression, and then I had to see a therapist to help wean me back into not being so depressed, which is also another thing that I really want to get on, but we'll have a talk on that on Life in the System.
I remember being really young, I'd say like 8, 9, 10, like around that time, and I remember having shortness of breath and going to my mom and telling her that. In hindsight, now I know that was obviously anxiety. I think being overworked and like being in the situation that I'm in now is kind of what like set it out of control in a way. I've had times where I feel like I need to be rushed to the hospital because I think that like my heart's failing and I can't breathe and I need like someone to like help me. Sometimes I think
it's crazy. I remember I think it was last year. I literally think it was last year. I had this just overwhelming sense of panic that literally my heart just, like, you feel like you are gonna have a heart attack. So it's like how do you explain looking fine, feeling fine, but your emotions is so out of balance? And how do you even explain a trigger? Because literally even a door slamming could be a trigger, and then you're just like in that sort of panic mode. And I remember going into the state of panic, and this was my first experience with my anxiety actually being that full blown. And a lot of COVID actually, just piled up on top of the anxiety. A lot of us had different COVID experiences, meaning with losses and gains and whatever the case may be. Definitely my COVID experience has been a blessed one, and also I have to say a blessed one, since I believe that God is my provider. I have to say a blessed one, but definitely there was some losses, and some big losses that might have aided into just the adding onto the anxiousness. But I remember this was my first experience having like my heart rate just shoot up, that I literally felt like I literally felt like I'm getting a heart attack. You get palpitations, you get sweats. It's just overwhelming, like you want to cry. And I remember I looked up at the sky, and I was literally like, God help, like I have no idea. And I literally remember my spirit speaking so loud to me. God spoke so loud to me saying, bruh, you know what this is. You know that it is not real. Like I said, truth rather than emotion. And I started crying, because also, even if you know truth, it's hard to get a grip on the truth. It's hard to see your emotions for what it is. It's hard to see yourself that hurt and that anxious, and that almost debilitating factor that you're almost sad for yourself going through that, and then having to see the truth for face value, what it is.
I'm dying. Sometimes parts of my body will go numb, and it can be really, intense and scary. I mean,
I had 2018. It was 2017 as well. This was after. This is after I started seeing a therapist, or before I started seeing a therapist. I think it was before I started seeing a therapist. Literally both of my arms and my legs would just go numb. It would just numb. It is just numb, up until a point where my hands would go numb as well. It was bad. And sometimes I'm still terrified to go into that state. But my spiritual belief and my faith wasn't as strong back then as it is now. So now I can assess anxiety, I can experience anxiety, and I can experience the trouble of anxiety, know the truth and try to dwell more towards the truth, and progress in that it becomes, you know, my way of life. Or I can live in the debilitating fear of anxiety. And as Christians, if any of you are a Christian, you know that we are not, we were not given a spirit of fear, but rather a spirit of boldness and a spirit of being encouraged, be a spirit of being fearless within, in knowing the truth for face value and knowing the tactics of the enemy. But not everyone has this type of not understanding, but also some may have the type of understanding. But I do believe God also put medical professionals in place that are able to help on a level where they are not spiritually yet. Let's go back a little.
Sometimes parts of my body will go numb, and it can be really, intense and scary. I mean, there is going to be those people that say like, oh, okay, what does she have to worry about? What does she have to be anxious about? And I'll never sit here and say that I'm not fortunate. I know I live a very privileged, amazing lifestyle. I'm a very blessed girl. I still have one of these, you know what I mean? And that thing up there sometimes like doesn't always, I don't know, it's not always like happy, and it's not always connecting, and I'm still a human being at the end of the day, and no matter what someone has or doesn't have, it doesn't mean that they don't have real life feelings and emotions.
That's so true.
As a psychologist in private practice here in Los Angeles, I work with people with a wide, like sort of, so what you call a generalist.
Right.
So different people bring in different stuff.
Right.
But the one thing that I would say every single individual that I've ever worked with has brought in is anxiety. One of the most important things I think is to destigmatize all mental health issues, particularly anxiety, because a lot of people think they're alone with this.
Like you kind of said, everyone I think suffers from, even if it's just a minimal amount of anxiety. But it is something when someone's like, oh my God, I have anxiety about this, like almost using the term loosely.
Right.
I know what that feels like, and like you're using it lightly, and I'm just like,
You've got to remember, anxiety is on a continuum,
Yeah.
right? At milder end, it's probably what these people are saying, oh, I'm feeling this anxiety, but they're getting through the day.
Yeah.
But one, it jumps the line, and there's a point at which anxiety gets in the way.
Right.
It makes people more uncomfortable at work. It makes people more uncomfortable in their relationships.
Yeah.
It makes people...
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. We're talking about the same thing, all right? Oh yeah, this is it. I'm so happy
uncomfortable
that
out of the house.
Right.
They'd actually just as soon stay home
Right.
than deal with the big unknown.
Yeah.
And they're physically uncomfortable. Their heart's racing. They feel like they're crawling out of their own skin. They feel sick a lot.
Yeah.
Everything's scary.
Right.
And when we get
Crazy.
to that point, we call it clinical.
That's crazy. That's literally crazy. I've found myself becoming more and more of an introvert because of this. It's crazy, just to go back a little, when she said she has this thing up here that isn't always connecting. It's so crazy that people, it's like the brain is the working center for everything else, but everything works via the heart. If you take the heart out, but just to bring this point that I want to make across is they both have different networkings. They both work different, and some people, you know how they have this emoji like you went into the relationship with your heart, but your brain told you no. But the thing of the heart is focused on the emotional center, right? Now, when your heart sort of is triggered, how it's triggered is obviously thought perception and sight perception, smell perception, here, even just general motion through your senses. Then what happens is the minute your heart is triggered, there's an influx of your heart rate has an influx, and once your heart rate increases automatically to the brain, it signals, yo, I'm in distress, can I have some help? Now, when the brain sends helpers towards your heart and assesses, okay, but what's wrong? It finds nothing wrong. Now, the brain is a problem solver. So that's the only thing the brain does. It problem solves. It solves problems and it allows for your networking center to work efficiently. But if there's a problem with feelings are made so real within your mind. So your mind is visualizing everything that you are now feeling. So now that the brain is literally trying to correct what you say that you are in distress about, there is nothing to correct. So the more you are in stress, your heart is in stress and your brain gets into distress as well. Blow up. Because what your brain wants to fix, there is nothing to fix. It's crazy, right? It's real crazy how your own members of your body can just turn around and attack you like that.
I think is to destigmatize all mental health issues,
right,
particularly anxiety, because a lot of people think they're alone with this.
Like you kind of said, everyone, I think, suffers from, even if it's just a minimal amount of anxiety. But it is something when someone's like, oh my God, I have anxiety about this, like almost using the term loosely.
Right.
I know what that feels like. And like, you're using that term lightly and I'm just like,
What you gotta remember is anxiety's on a continuum.
Yeah.
Right? At the milder end, it's probably what these people are saying, oh, I'm feeling this anxiety, but they're getting through the day.
Right.
But one
that triggers me a little sometimes when people use anxiety so lightly, and I'm out here suffering to times where I'd literally be in bed crying because my heart rate is, I know that I'm suffering from anxiety, but there's no cure. Not that there's no cure, it just comes at such a random, like I would go weeks and I would be fine, and then boom, panic attack out of no freaking where. And like having that on and off state, it's more my trial and my test to be able to combat it with truth rather than believing in the lie that, you know, my emotions and my insides are telling me. But literally when people use the term so loosely, it almost gives you anxiety, because you're just like, that's not, you know, you're surviving. Like I really go through crying times, and there's people like it's to such an extent where people don't even know your tears because you don't even open up to an extent about it. You know, you just like suffer through it alone.
Jumps the line, and there's a point at which anxiety gets in the way.
Right.
It makes people more uncomfortable at work. It makes people more uncomfortable in their relationships. It makes people more uncomfortable out of the house.
Right.
They'd actually just as soon stay home than deal with the big unknown. And they're physically uncomfortable. Their heart's racing.
Exactly. Someone asked me like a couple years ago, I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. This was before pre-diagnosis. And I was still on substances, so I wasn't even fully aware that I was busy suppressing so many feelings and emotions and stuff. And they asked me like, what am I afraid of? And I said the fear of the unknown. And they laughed because they were like, fear of the unknown? Like, but think about it though. Think about it. You have no idea what's about to happen. Like you have no idea. And that's sort of the thing that, you know, she's referring to right now. It's just the unknown of it. Like you don't know what's going to happen if you put yourself out there. This is different from having the guts to pursue versus just having a social gathering. You know what I mean?
Soon stay home than deal with the big unknown. And they're physically uncomfortable. Their heart's racing. They feel like they're crawling out of their own skin. They feel sick a lot. Everything's scary.
Right.
And when we get to that point, we call it clinically significant anxiety.
Okay.
It's got a name. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Now I know.
Now you know. It sounds like social anxiety is something you had even before the pandemic.
Before, I was really overwhelmed, really overworked. I was always around people, and I kind of got really overwhelmed with all of that to the point where I was like, I need to like be alone. Now it's more like, okay, we've all been super isolated to the point where I'm almost like so used to that that now that things are slowly opening up. If I go to a dinner or if I see a few more of my friends that I'm used to seeing throughout this last year, that gives me anxiety.
I'm going to give you an analogy. Have you ever been scuba diving?
My friend literally asked me this one time, are you going to chill with us? Because I know you. And then chilling with people. And I was like, man, my social anxiety is like to that point where people need to ask me, yo, so do you want to chill with people or what? But it's like, it's not that bad. Like I can't put myself, you know, once I'm in the moment, it's sort of like the friendly side of me takes over and I'm able to keep a conversation going. But before that, before every possible scenario that doesn't even exist is already running through my mind without even me, without even me going through each of them, it's already running through my mind. And then, that, type of anxiety already starts building up. Now I've realized that I actually have clinically significant anxiety, which I know, but I'm, combating it a little differently.
Right.
Like you come from, 20 feet up.
I know this.
You could actually get really sick.
Yeah.
And that's called the bends.
Yeah.
And psychology is similar. Well, from this pandemic, if we go too quickly from being locked in to throwing ourselves right back out there, especially for people with anxiety, they're going to kind of get the psychological bends.
Right.
And they're really going to kind of get rattled.
So you have to ease yourself into it.
Have to ease yourself into it. Right. We're all learning our skills again. We lost.
I know, it's crazy.
Social anxiety has a certain look to it. And people who are socially anxious classically are afraid that not only are people looking at them, that they're criticizing
them.
They're judging them, and that the socially anxious person feels like they're doing judgeable things, or that they're making other people uncomfortable merely by being there. They're like, oh, these people are...
It's crazy. My cousin also suffers from anxiety. And he literally basically had this type of, social type of anxiety where, fear of being criticized, even though like people are just maybe admiring his sense of style or his sense of, people could be looking at, whichever, but you sort of think the bad. It's always the bad in your head. And it's crazy. I just came from Galatians 6, and Paul mentioned something. We need to look at ourselves and be accountable for ourselves and not care about what the next person is doing, because they have to be accountable for themselves. And in that sense, it literally is a reflector of the saying, pay no mind to haters, or pay no mind to what people think of you or what people have to say about you. Just do you and continue to do you, and all of that. But that doesn't, this is the thing, this is the thing that people don't get. It's nice to give people encouraging words like that, but you have to be sensitive to your mind. You have to be sensitive to the brain. You have no control over what you think at all unless you think. So in that sense, it's always quick to say, pay no mind to people, or pay no, blah, 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 blah. It's good to encourage someone to look away, but it's always good to keep it focused on the mind. You know what? If your mind again does that, either come to me and we, dissect it again, or if you're going through that, always remind yourself, always get a center, always remind yourself about maybe the scripture or that scripture, or always remind yourself about, you know what? Even if they are thinking bad, even if they are thinking bad, I cannot judge them based on what they are thinking. Let me rather think, oh, maybe they're looking at my outfit. Let me see the positive rather than the negative. Let me rather think positively and negatively, and then try and help the person train themselves into thinking more positive and negative than negative, rather than telling them, you know what, pay no mind to haters, or it's the other thing I just said. I'm sorry. It's a lot, and we're literally just 5 minutes in, and I've spoken more than 20 minutes already, guys.
Uncomfortable because I'm so awkward.
Yeah.
What happens is, over time, because that moment is so hard, even before the person gets into the situation, their heart is racing. They feel sick. The whole experience of even being with people feels so aversive.
Yeah.
It's easier to just say, nah, I'm not.
Yeah.
And this is all strictly like mental, right?
Yeah.
It's just everything that your brain is like,
Yeah.
you're just going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
You're going down a rabbit hole.
Definitely.
Because it feels so physical. That's why I asked you that. It's like, so I've like literally gone to doctors because that's how bad it gets for me, to where I'm like, something's literally wrong.
Correct. Panic attacks are the sort of the brick of every anxiety disorder or anxiety experience we see. It's all a miscommunication in the brain. Everything gets ramped up. It's taking the signals from here. Change this, you change this.
Yeah.
I'm also a hypochondriac, which I don't know if that has any relation to, like, or if it's the cousin of anxiety or something, but I'm like a massive hypochondriac. So, and that's also something that has been a thing since I was really little.
I have no idea what
People
that is.
who are anxious are always monitoring their bodies. It's almost like a Roomba. You're always sort of like wandering around and vacuuming all these thoughts in your body.
Yeah.
And so if you even feel like a tiny headache, like, oh my God, I have
Yes,
a tumor in my brain.
that's me.
You know,
That is me.
or I have some lung disease.
I've mentally checked out on that. I have literally through my experience, like I had anxiety before I actually began to know the deeper parts of the mystery that I do know now. Before I actually was like, you know what, Jesus, you are my Lord and Savior. Before, you know, that was me. Before that was me. This was me. Everything. Headache, really bad breath, just everything. I would correlate it with some type of disease, which is crazy. Now more so, it's more prayer and supplication. Sometimes when it does want to get to that stage, though, it really helps to have you know, a little spiritual click, to be able to help navigate you, you know, away from the tactics of the enemy, to want to get you in that sort of state of vicinity of fear for your life.
I have to go get checked out. Anxiety is like a magnifying glass, and it magnifies only the bad things.
Yeah.
Every little pain, every little this, and so in essence, what we're trying to do is take that magnifying glass and put it to being a regular lens.
Wow.
Because especially physical sensations.
Wow, that's crazy. You see, especially physical sensations. You do get physical sensations. You do man, the way your physical sensation just feels so real, like it feels like you're gonna have a heart attack, it feels like your arms are gonna fall off, it feels like you don't have breath, it feels like your brain's gonna just melt. It's crazy how she describes it as a magnifying glass, because that is really how it feels.
Because anxiety is such a physical disorder.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that's one thing I always want to tell people is that they go together, and that as the anxiety starts getting pulled away, those hypochondriacal thoughts also start coming down because they're a nuisance.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really an important thing for people.
Well,
to
you're
know.
literally, sometimes I'm bad at putting my thoughts into words, and you're doing it for me. So these are some written in questions from followers and viewers. The first question: how do you open up to people about social anxiety?
Tell your nearest and dearest. Like practice having a conversation with the people you feel safest with. People will say, oh, I did not know that, and thank you for telling me, because I won't push as much.
I can support you, and now I'm aware.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing, you don't always get that response. You don't get that response. A lot of people actually don't know how to respond towards you opening up, you know, about anxiety. One thing about me, I've always been such a energy seer, such an energy, I've always thrived on making connections on people's behaviors and people themselves, their characteristics, their personality, and the type of energy that they're exuding. I've always also been a great detector of people hiding stuff. So whether you are a perceiver of whether you want to perceive, you know, being this person, but I actually see, you know, the backdoor you, I've always dwelled in that sort of balance of energy. And so I've always assessed who I'm able to be open with and who I'm able to not be open with. And then I just, you know, just because I it's almost like you have a sort of pre-sense of how, you know, someone is able to react and trust, even if you like, I think if you have the same comment down below, if you have the same experience, if you like are able to visibly detect and feel energy like that, and your senses are never wrong. That's why, you know, it's like a sure deal, like you have done it so many times and you've tested it so many times that you know, no, your spirit is not wrong in, you know, just keeping this information to yourself, because the response can even put you in a more negative state than you already are.
How should I handle anxiety over a loved one who isn't being cautious during COVID? Wow. Ooh. I feel this.
I've heard this from so many people. If you have a healthy relationship, you can explain your point of view and say, listen, this is concerning me for all these reasons.
Yeah.
Okay? If the person's still not meeting you halfway, like they really are being difficult, I talk about realistic expectations.
That's crazy.
You're probably not going to get them.
That's crazy. It's crazy to have to share your it's not even a pet peeve because it's literally it creates anxiousness. So you sharing your anxiety with someone about how they are handling or even doing a certain thing, or the precautions that they need to take. For a simple example, COVID and wearing a mask, and they're still not doing it. It's that even puts you in a greater level of just anxiousness around it. Like, how many times do you need to tell something to someone before they actually start doing it? And how many, like, it's just not fun, especially if they're a close one to you. It's like, how many times do I need to say the same thing before we're both gonna start getting annoyed? And just, that's crazy. That's so crazy. Please treat people with anxiety a lot better than you do. Please. We already have our brains attacking us for no apparent reason.
Who isn't being cautious during COVID? Wow.
How do you tell someone to be cautious during COVID and they're not doing it? Like, you should know to be cautious during COVID. And even when I tell you to be cautious during COVID and you're not, like, oh, that's just a slap in my. I've experienced this so many times. I just, I've suppressed so many feelings just because I've actually come from a violent phase in my life. I was bullied in primary school, and then, you know what? I was just like, I'm done. I'm fed up. If y'all wanna come at me again, I'm gonna use my fists for you. And that created such a violent stage within my life that I really threw a mean punch. I really left your nose bleeding. Like, I did not play. And to suppress that kind of level of anger, and that, level of anger that you can dig into, is just, I just, especially moving in the spirit, you can't even act out of your own selfish ambition anymore. It's just flowing with the spirit and what the spirit wants for you. And so if you're even asking someone to do something and they're not doing it, they're not even having you in account. It's very difficult. It's very bad. But also retaliating against that, like, within the spirit, you can't. So that puts you in a very difficult position between your spirit and your flesh. So are they even really, your person? That's the type of, then that is what makes me get socially anxious, because now I can't even be at a same level with you anymore, because you are disregarding my emotion based off of how you are reacting to a request that I'm making. And it's a valid request. Like, it's not even a bad request.
Heard this. You're probably not going to get them to be mask wearing, sanitizer doing, hand washing friend. Then all you can do is keep your side of the street clean.
Right. Yeah.
Anxiety's gotten a really bad brand. So I want to also say something nice about anxiety. Once upon a time, the anxiety is what made us survive.
Yeah.
The anxious people knew to say, tiger coming, don't eat those berries. Looks like something bad's happening.
Yeah. That's crazy. There's the exact same scripture in Proverbs that says, this type of person will create anxiousness for everyone else by being that there's a lion in the street, but when you are moving for God, you literally move in courage and fearlessness. So even if the lion is there, Daniel, you know what I mean? Like, that's the type of fearlessness that you have to believe in as you seek the mystery of God. And so, yes, it's a good thing to be prepared and to shoot a warning shot, but also within the spiritual realm, you don't even have to shoot a warning shot of a lion. Just walk past the lion. You have dominion. Literally, it's a lot. Not a lot. It's fascinating to me to figure out my internal organs, and how they are working worldly, fleshy, and how they're working spiritually. It's fascinating, even still, that I have, this human nature of anxiousness. Well, not even human nature of anxiousness, but just this human nature of experience.
Anxiety kept us safe to a degree. And people who are anxious are higher in this personality trait called neuroticism. People who are higher in neuroticism are also sometimes a little bit more aware of other people's stuff too.
I consider it like a beautiful thing in a way.
It is a beautiful thing.
And I like that I am really aware of my body and like my mind. I know it can sometimes get the best of me, but I think that I like that I'm in tune, and I like that I like, you know, want to know everything.
Like it's crazy. Like I want to know everything me. It's crazy that you are this aware of so many things, so many other factors around you and yourself too. It's crazy being that in tune with yourself, that you can be in tune and out of tune at the same time, but still understanding you're out of tune, in tune. Crazy.
Thing.
Anxiety, when it's sort of right in that sweet spot, is a little bit of a superpower because it actually helps you keep yourself safe, keep others safe, and kind of keep you mentally on point. So there's that perfect sweet spot of anxiety where there's just enough where you're performing at the top of your game and keeping. So we want to get you right.
So we're asking all the doctors that I meet for some tips and tricks that maybe the viewers can take into account of their own life and apply to their life. So if you have anything, I would love to hear for myself and for all the viewers.
One of the best things a person who's socially anxious can do is prepare. That getting caught, coming late, rushing, that doesn't feel good. So be on time.
Bruh. This is prime importance. I stand on it. Be on time. I swear. I would have this full face beat on and go to work. I actually had so many people asking me, yo, what time do you wake up? And I've made it actually through my spiritual journey. My spirit became more apparent to me in time management. And I've always been a time management, like sort of, I did a lot of extracurricular activities, netball, athletics, did swimming, I did dancing, like various types of dances, and I also managed to, you know, do singing and choreography here and there. And all of those things actually help me, you know, stay on track and stay on time. But one thing, I promise you, one thing that is just, it just irks me is time management. Like even time management, if I do not wake up on time or do things on time, it almost throws off the whole balance of my day, and I'm almost already at a depressive sort of nature at the beginning of my day, if the rest of my day, or at the beginning of my day, if my day does not start according to plan, which is kind of a little bit of OCD-ish, but it really helps that you are early and on time. It also helps the people around you, because then that, you know, negative type of rushy energy doesn't, you know, feed off of anyone else. Like, we have to remember that we are our bodies filled with energy, and what you are filled up with pours out to you know, the people within your environment.
Or be a little bit early.
Oh my God, I'm be on time. Yep. If I'm not, I freak out.
There you go. So if you can be on time or be a little bit early, even if you're sitting in your car and you're like, perfect, now I'm going to go in, you're less frenzied.
Like I would even get to a point where, say a shift starts at 12, I know for a fact that I need to leave at 11, right? Then even if my makeup is not done, I would always leave stuff like mascara and blush, or if I'm putting on blush, if I'm putting on highlight, I would always leave it for last. If you guys want to check out any, you know, makeup tips and tricks, I'm going to do it on Life in the System. I'm going to do full on tutorials about how I do and what I do for makeup, and then you can always also check it on my Instagram if you guys are interested. I'm doing like short little videos, like fast speed for those of you that are actually, you know, into the makeup thing already. But anyway, I'd always leave those sort of things for last, so that when I'm in the car, even for interviews, when I'm in the car, then I can do them in the car at the place. I have to make sure that I'm there 45 minutes to half an hour before the time, an hour before the time, and I'd sit and get ready before I go in.
Prepare. Learn what you're getting into. Like, how many people are going to be there? What's it going to feel like? Almost mentally rehearse it a little. That helps a lot. So here's the second thing you can take away. A lot of what can help people who are socially anxious is to get good feedback from your audience. So a great way to do it is sort of a 3-point plan for how you can use your body. It's uncrossing, I'm going to uncross my legs too. Uncross your arms, okay? Make eye contact and smile. When you do that, you disarm everyone. And interestingly, when I first met you, you did that right away. And you put me at ease.
Wow.
So I felt comfortable. Whereas if I come in and you were just sort of distant or aloof or remote, I would have felt anxious. So that's a dance, and that mirrored dance becomes really, you know, it becomes really important.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to sit with you, and I learned a lot today. So thank you.
And I appreciate you sharing your story, because I'm always grateful when people talk about their stories publicly, so people can see they're not alone with this. Because I think the hardest thing of all is to feel alone. So thank you for doing that.
It does definitely feel like a weight is lifted when I, feel something and I hear someone else saying, "Oh yeah, I get what you're feeling," or
"That's crazy.
This must be what you're feeling, right?"
That's crazy. I am actually feeling, like, I remember at the start of it, like, you couldn't tell, because obviously, you know, you have such sometimes we have such good poker faces as anxious beings, that, you know, we sort of feel everything internally, but it's actually, it feels like such a little, like a weight is lifted off my shoulders, that actually it's so pinpoint specific to what I'm experiencing and how I experience it. It's crazy.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, like that's exactly what I'm trying to express. And it's that comforting feeling of like, okay, she's either experienced this herself or she knows people that have experienced it, being a doctor who's seen a lot. So it just makes you feel a little it just makes you feel understood, and that's a really nice feeling.
That's it. I'm gonna leave those hotlines. I'm in South Africa, so I'm gonna leave South Africans hotlines, or actually I'm gonna leave it all down in the description. So down in the description box, for if any of you want to reach out for a little bit of help, then you can just check the description. I'm gonna leave music reaction links, not links, but details out of the series that I'm getting into, because it literally is more a little, in-depth experiences with very touchy topics. A lot of people do not know the severity, and we've seen the severity of anxiety right now. We've seen the ripple effects. We've seen how it, forms and fuses, and how it can, become so massive. And we've seen each different form of how we are able to combat it. But as there's a very nice scripture in Proverbs that says, "A good encouraging words suppresses anxiety." So if you know anyone who has anxiety, please be a little more mindful. Please be a little more cautious of how you treat them. I know we do not like to be babied, but a smile helps. A smile helps. A question of how are you doing today? How are you feeling? Especially if you know someone that is going through anxiety and also on the severe point of anxiety. Trust me, they do not want to be in that. Trust me that they are coping. Trust me that they might even get ways to cope. And if you are someone that is dependent on something to cope, I found Christ to help cope. And even that is a journey in itself, with no judgment at all. Like, I came with my substances towards Christ, and that sort of got taken all the way, because I had to solely depend on the Holy Spirit, God, and Christ for me being renewed, and even as my anxiety as well is being catered to, and being understood and being understanding, and me actually experiencing it full blown. It is steps, it's practical steps. We are progressing as people, always. So this was very insightful, even for me, even to just be acknowledged in every single emotion that I go through when I have panic attacks and anxiety attacks. and you know how far, you know, anxiety can actually go. Anyone wants to comment anything, if you found this video helpful, comment down below. Please share your story with me, as we are going into session 2. Please in the comment section, let's be interactive. Let's find ways that we could be there for each other, even if it's just here. Hey, are you okay? How are you feeling? Hey, you know, let's try and focus on the, not necessarily, you know, being that corny to say let's focus on the positive side, but let's focus on things, practical things that we get to do to be able to combat it, because it happens so sudden, and because you are in that sort of moment where you're just as much shocked that anxiety is happening to you, because you thought, oh, I thought anxiety was, you know, out the way. It's been 3 weeks. I haven't had an anxiety attack, but I've had small little panic attacks that I've been able to, you know, come through and survive. But today I'm having a full-blown one, and you know, those types of things, so that we could be there for one another, and just try and mentally get to a place where we know that there is a self-sabotage happening. We don't want that self-sabotage to happen, and so we need to find practical ways to alleviate that. So I hope you guys subscribe, share, like this video, and then I'll see you guys next Friday for session 2. The rest of the week is music, so stay tuned for that.